If the front wheels of a car lose traction with the road surface while attempting to steer, the car enters a state known as understeer. Understeer is always bad and never intentionally used in any rally driving technique. In fact, some of these techniques are used specifically to avoid understeer. Understeer occurs if traction has been partially lost. The car will continue to corner, but at less of an angle than the direction of the front wheels. The car will feel like it is pushing forward. In this situation, applying more steering angle often makes the situation worse, as doing so requires even more traction than was initially being asked of the front tyres. If the wheels have entirely lost traction, the car will cease turning and will slide in the direction it was travelling before the wheels locked. This is particularly common while steering under heavy braking, as the traction of the tyre is being used partly to slow the car down and partly to turn. The correct response is to stop any input to the brake and accelerator and reduce the steering angle. This allows the weight of the car to settle and traction to be regained. On loose surfaces such as gravel and snow, there is an increased chance of understeer due to the reduced level of grip, so techniques are often used to induce oversteer to prevent the car from understeering in the first place. Front-wheel drive cars are particularly prone to understeer as all braking, accelerating and turning forces go through the front tyres. Understeer can occur while accelerating if the combined forces of accelerating and steering overcome the traction available. A similar loss of traction can occur due to braking and steering. Rear-wheel drive cars are least prone to understeer as the front tyres are only used to brake and turn. In fact, their characteristics are more prone to oversteer. Four-wheel drive cars tend to exhibit the characteristics of front-wheel drive cars under braking on corner entry and rear-wheel drive cars under acceleration on corner exit. Rally teams work hard to reduce these characteristics and give a more balanced setup. Remember, understeer is always bad. When rally driving, make sure you try and avoid it at all costs. If the rear wheels of a car lose traction with the road surface while attempting to steer, the car enters a state known as oversteer. This is when the angle of the car exceeds that of the steering input and the rear of the car steps out of line with the front. Unlike understeer, oversteer is often used as a technique to increase the speed at which corners can be taken. By proactively eliminating understeer, a higher exit speed can be achieved. How oversteer is induced and controlled depends on the type of drivetrain in the car. By definition, front-wheel drive cars do not have any drive to the rear wheels. Therefore, oversteer cannot be induced by applying the throttle, but can be induced by using weight transfer. Once a front-wheel drive car enters oversteer, the attitude of the car can be controlled by steering with opposite lock, accelerating, decelerating, or braking. Applying opposite lock while accelerating will effectively speed up the front of the car and will bring the rear of the car back in line. If more oversteer is required, for example if the corner is tighter than expected, decelerating or braking will increase the amount of oversteer by maintaining the weight over the front wheels and therefore reducing the grip on the rear. As the rear wheels of a four-wheel drive vehicle are powered, you can also induce and maintain oversteer by using the throttle to spin the wheels. Depending on the ratio of power delivery between front and rear wheels, the car may have a tendency to oversteer more or less on corner exit. If the ratio is biased towards the front, under acceleration the car may pull itself out of oversteer. However, if the ratio is biased toward the rear, applying power may increase oversteer by spinning the rear wheels. Subtle control of the steering, throttle and brake is used to initiate, maintain and exit oversteer, and the same weight shifting techniques apply to four-wheel drive as for front-wheel drive cars. Unlike front and four-wheel drive cars, rear-wheel drive cars require the opposite technique with regard to throttle control during oversteer. Oversteer can be induced and maintained by weight transfer, but also by applying power to break the traction of the rear wheels. Once oversteer has been initiated, continuing to apply power will maintain the slide. In order to limit or correct oversteer, throttle input must be reduced. Lift-off oversteer occurs when, during cornering, you lift off the throttle. Because the car is slowed by engine braking, there will be a certain amount of longitudinal weight transfer which will unload the rear tyres, causing them to partially lose traction with the road. In a front-wheel drive car, this weight transfer alone is enough to induce oversteer because the front of the car is usually heavier than the rear. In four-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive cars, although the difference in the static weight between the front and rear may not be as great as a front-wheel drive car, the effect is amplified by engine braking also acting on the rear wheels as they are unloaded by the weight transferring forward. The key thing to remember is that oversteer is used as a technique to increase the speed at which corners can be taken. Pendulum turns are probably the most advanced technique used in rally driving. They are essentially the culmination of all the techniques we have described in these guides. They are used specifically to prevent the car from understeering on loose surfaces when approaching sharp turns or hairpins at relatively high speed. The technique works by using the momentum of the rear of the car swinging from one direction to the other. It must be timed correctly so that the final weight shift happens at the turning point for a corner. Modern rally teams put a lot of effort into reducing their car's tendency to understeer, so pendulum turns are not used as much in today's cars as they were with the classics. In order to explain the process, here are the inputs you should make and the effect it will have on the car at each point during a pendulum turn. In this example, the car is travelling at high speed on a straight piece of gravel road and has to make a 90-degree turn. As you arrive at the braking point, you get hard on the brakes to slow the car down and shift the weight of the car forward. With increased grip on the front wheels, flick the steering wheel in the opposite direction of the corner. The reduced weight over the rear wheels will put the car into oversteer, with the rear of the car stepping out and the front of the car pointing away from the corner. You can now increase your throttle input, reduce your braking input and steer in the direction of the corner before modulating all three inputs. This allows you to maintain the oversteer until the point at which the car needs to turn in for the corner. It's worth noting that the lateral grip of the tyre combined with some braking input causes the car to rapidly decelerate as if braking hard in a straight line. Now release the brake pedal and feather the throttle. This will snap the car out of oversteer in the initial direction. The momentum of the weight shift of the rear of the car, coupled with the acceleration and steering input, will initiate oversteer in the direction of the corner. At the turning point, apply full throttle and move the steering wheel in the same direction as the rear of the car. This is the pendulum part. You want the car to oversteer in the direction of the corner to help eliminate understeer. Now feather the throttle as the car is switching from oversteer one way to the other. You must move the steering wheel in the same direction in order to catch the second slide. You will now have oversteer through the corner. Keep feathering the throttle and control the oversteer with opposite lock. A perfect Scandinavian flick will see you hitting the apex and accelerating through the corner exit where the car is straight once more. Remember, this is an advanced technique and practice makes perfect. The advantage is that by deliberately using the momentum of the rear of the car, you can actively prevent the car from understeering into a tight corner. There is a common misconception that to drive a rally car quickly, you need to wrestle the steering wheel one way, then the other, as much as possible. When you turn the steering wheel, you are transferring the weight of the car to the wheels on the side where it's needed to load the suspension and provide traction for turning. If you rapidly move the weight from one side to the other, it is likely to destabilize the car, making it difficult to control. Continuing the soaring action on the steering wheel will progressively make the situation worse until either a crash or a spin has occurred. When cornering or making corrections to the steering, you should apply the minimum amount of steering necessary. In conjunction with other techniques, such as left foot braking to induce oversteer, the amount of steering input necessary may be considerably lower than would be required for the same angle corner in a road car. As well as keeping the car as stable as possible, using the minimum amount of steering takes the least time to apply and then remove. Consider a situation where the car unexpectedly and significantly oversteers. If you were to apply a lot of opposite lock, it may correct the situation. However, the rear wheels may suddenly grip, snapping the car out of oversteer, and you may have to rapidly unwind the opposite lock in order to prevent the car from transferring into oversteer in the other direction. Excessive steering lock would only serve to make this situation more difficult to control. So remember, always try to use the minimum amount of steering input possible in conjunction with other techniques to make sure the car remains as stable as possible.
Left 6 over jump AB 100. Right 6 through dip 80. Caution left 5 over jump 60. Left 3 half long 60. Left 4 continues past junction opens. And left 5. Right 4 tightens 3 into immediate turn square right on come. 60. Right 5 half long. Into left 6 half long. 60. Train into square left late don't come. 80. Right 6 through dip press. To right 5 long. Into left 1 long. Turn right forward 5. And right 5, half long 80. Right 2 times to 1, 60. Right 6 over crack. Left 4 long. And left 2. Open 60. Left 5 long over crack. Right 6. Left 6 continues over jump. Left 6 jump keep mid. Left 6 into right 5 long jump 60. six, and right six, into left six, into caution right 5 times, cut past junction, into square left, into turn right 3, into left 2 tight, to left 6, to right 3 half long through dip, to left 3 long, turn right 5, 60, right 5 long, into right 5 long, and hairpin right, 60, water temp is rising, hairpin left, into right 5 long, and right 5 40 past junction centered, left 3, right 4 double jump, into left 3 half long left at 60, left 4 long over crest, keep in, and right 6, 60, caution hairpin right 100, left 6, right 6 over bump 60, care right 5 long, into hairpin left, into left 6 half long 150 over bump dip, left 6 and right 6 over bump 60, caution left 6 half long, crest, jump, keep in, and left 6, into turn acute right 40, finish. Left 6 over jump maybe 100, right 6 through dip 80, caution left 5 over jump 60, left 3 half long 60, left 4 continues past junction open, and left 5, right 4 tight 3 into immediate turn square right double cut, 60, right 5 half long, into left 6 half long, 60, right, square left 8, long cut 80, right 6 through dip, crash, into right 5 long, into left 1 long, into turn right 4 tight, and right 5 half long 80, right 2 tight to 160, right 6 over crest, left 4 long, and left 2, open to 60, left 5 long over crest, right 6, left 6, continue low jump, caution left 6 jump, keep in, left 6, into right 5 don't hairpin left. Into right 5 long. And right 5 4, keep half junction to center. Left 3. Right 4 low cut. Into left 3 half long, low cut, 60. Left 4 long, over crest, keep it. And right 6, 60. Care hairpin right, 100. Left 6, half long, 150, over long 10. Left 6 and right 6 over long 60. Left 6 half long, crest, jump, keep in, and left 6. Into turn Q right 40. Down. Into left 4, immediate turn square left, 60. Keep right on the small crest. Into left 2 times to 1. Into right 4 long. Into left 6. Into right 2 long crest. Into left 4 line over 2 crest. Into left 3 long 60. Left 6 over crest. Right 2 long, no cut. Into left 3 long. And right 4 over crest. Left 6 over crest, jump maybe. Right 3 long, 60. Caution left 4, keep right over quick jump. Into left 3 narrows, 40. Right 6. Into left 5, keep right over crest. Left 5, keep right over crest. Left 6 long, into right 6, keep left over crest. Right 5 long, continues over crest, keep in. Left 4, opens long. Left 3 long. Into right 6. Left 6 through gate 60.
I just can't help this feeling.
4 into right 4 long, mid over big jump gate, left 6. And right 6 over crest, jump maybe. Into left 5 long front cut, 40. Left 6 long over crest and crest. Into right 6 long. Into left 5 long, keep right on jump. To right 6, left 6, 200. Left 5, caution right 4 over jump, long outside. Into left 5, half long, 100. Left 6, into right 3 long, stay mid, long outside. And left 6, into right 6, left 6. 40 turns well out. To right 5, continue to 130, turn heavy right. To left 6, 60. Turn left 3, back out with uncut. Into right 6, over crest, turn right 1. It's to keep left, half junction crest. Right 6, half long. And left 4, long, over crest. And right 5, continue to 100. Left 6, it's cross, right 2, tight to 1. Into left 4 long, and crest. And keep right over crest. And left 6, 60. Finish.
It's really hard to help. You made my dreams all fading fantasies, and now you ring my bell. Now I got myself rising back from hell. Baby, I was born to be me. Don't stop the music tonight. Love
hairpin right. 100. Right wide, half line, into left 4 long. 100. Caution right 6, into immediate hairpin left. Hairpin right. 60. Right 4 times, 3 no cut. And left 2 half long, keep mid pumps. And left 3 past junction through gates. Right wide long past junction. Press. Left wide. And right wide through dip. 40. Dip. 100. Caution braking turn Q right, don't cut. Into turn square left long. 100. Turn right one, don't cut. 100 past junction. 60. Caution left right bump, don't cut, brake. 60 press. Right 6 past junction. Left 3 long, don't cut. 60 keep right. Left 6 don't cut, 80 press. Caution right 3 don't cut, keep in rocks outside. 100 through dip, past junction, turn right 5 cut. 60. Left 6 continues 150 press. 80 past laybys. Caution turn right don't cut. Immediate left 1 don't cut. 170. Right 5 long don't cut. Into turn left 1 dip. Don't cut. 40 past junction. 80. Left 4 long. And right 6 times 3 past junction. Opens 100. Left 4 don't cut, keep mid past junction, rocks outside. bumper dip. Caution slow, into right 5, into hairpin right. Into left 5, 60, keep right over crest. Left 6, dip. Caution right 6, 80. Acute left 60. Left 6. Into right 4 long, 60. Right 3 don't cut. Into left 4. Into right 3 times 2, 60. Left 4. Into left 4. Into acute right. Into hairpin left. Left 6 half long. Stay mid over crest, past junction. Into right 3 long, keep it. Left 2 long, through dip, crest. Into right 5. Into right 2 late. Into turn left 2. Into square right. Left 5 tight. Into right 6. To left 6, to right 6, 60, right 1, into turn left 1 past junction, and left 4, into right 6, 60, keep right over jump, 100, right 6 over jump, tightens to right 5, left 6, right 4 over small crest, tightens, into caution right 1 down, into right 4, 60, caution keep right over crest, into open hairpin left, into right 6, into left 2, into turn left 2, to right 1 over crest, into left 5, left 6 through dip, 80, right 1, tight coast outside, into crest, to right 4, into left 4, caution left 6 into immediate turn to left, don't cut. To left 4 long. To right 6. To right 1. Small crest. To right 2. Into left 6. And right 3 over crest jump. 80. Left 6 through dip, 80. Double caution right 5 over big jump. And left 5 long to finish.
Fire is burning deep inside me.
crest. Caution braking, turn acute left on cut. Into turn left 4, 250 through dip. Turn heavy right, don't cut, opens. And turn right 3, don't cut. Into left 6 long. And turn right 4. Into turn left 4, 80. Crest 80. Right 6 dip. Left 6. Right 6, 80. Caution jump past junction 100. Past junction. Caution braking, turn acute right. Turn hairpin left, don't cut. 150 through dip. Turn right 1. Into turn right 1, ditch outside, narrows. 100 through dip. Past junction. Crest 100. Caution, keep left. Into right 1, immediate turn square right, don't cut. 80. Turn hairpin left, 80. Turn hairpin left, don't cut, 80. Turn square right, don't cut. Into turn acute left, don't cut. Into turn right 4, half long. 400 past junction. And turn right 1, don't cut. Into turn right 1, don't cut. And left 5 continues for 80. 100 through dip. Right 6 and crest, 500. Caution brake, deceptive, turn right 1. Into turn right 3, don't cut, down. Keep in, rocks on exit, 100. Crest 100, down. Turn acute left, don't cut. 100 on the crest. To finish.
Inside, the beating goes louder when I'm not alone. I feel
long crest. Right 1 long close. Into left 2 half long. And left 5 long 170 over crest. Keep left over crest. To open hairpin right. To left 2 long. To right 660. Right 6 long crest. Left 6 into right 3 long crest. Hairpin left. To right 5. To left 1 long tight. To right 1 half long. Left 3 long 100. Hairpin right. Into left 5. Into right 4 long. Into left 2 long. Into right 2 long. Left 3 crest. And open hairpin left. Into right 3 long. To left.
I can say goodbye to you. You were my world. Maybe you kill me.
3 long don't cut. Into hairpin right. And 1 3 long don't cut over crest. Into left 460. Left 4. Into right 660. Right 5 long jump AB 130. Hairpin right open. And left 4 continue to 100. To right 4 over jump, don't cut, 40 narrows. Left 6 over crest. And left 2 opens over crest, 150. Right 6 continues to 100. Into hairpin left. 60. Left 6. And right 6 over crest, 40. Golden crest. Left 6. Immediate hairpin right. 150 over crest. Right 6 over crest. Left 5 long. And right 6 long. Into open hairpin right. Ice patches from here. Left 5 continue to 100. Into right 5. Into left 6. Into right 4 long, don't cut. Into care left 1 long, narrow exit. Into right 6 half long, 150 up dip.
Unafraid, we'll make the escape to safer places, but where it's cold, they freeze and they wait for you to save them. We're on the edge of feeling the despair. I hear a voice from beyond the atmosphere. Will the true unknown leave us so alone? When the sun goes down, will you hear the cry? Or just walk on by?
go. Right 4, crest line, over 100. Left 6, 80, crest. 100 to dead. Right 4, times 3. Left 4, half long, band camber, 60. Left front wheel 12. Keep mid over 2 crest. Go. Right 4, crest line, over 100. Left 6, 80, crest. 100 to dead. Right 4 times 3. Left 4 half long, band camber, 60. Keep mid over 2 crest, right 6. Left 6, don't cut, 150. Caution narrows, left 5, don't cut, bad camber. Right 6, long, 150. Caution, keep mid over crest jump and brake, left 1. Go. Right 4, crest line, over 100. Left 6, 80, crest. 100 to dead. Right 4 times 3. Left 4 half long, bad camber, 60. Keep mid over 2 crest, right 6. Left 6, don't cut, 150. Caution narrows, left 5, don't cut, bad camber. Right 6, long, 150. Caution, keep mid over crest jump and brake, left 1. And right 1 half long. Into left 1 long. And right 3 long, don't cut. Opens over crest, 60. Care right 6, into left 5, don't cut past junction, into crest, right 6, left 5 long, crest, 80 crest. Right 6 long, times 5, don't cut crest, jump maybe 60. Turn right 3, don't cut. Crest, jump maybe. Left 6, into right 5 long. Into left 3 long, 60. Right 3. Left 5 tight, don't cut, 150. Left 6. Course, right 6 rocks inside, 200. Right 6 over bumps, left 5. Right 6, 120. Right 4 long, 60, left 1 half long, right 6 half long, crest, right 6 half long, tight 4, left 6, out to crest. Into right 5.5 long, tight 2, don't cut. 60. Left 2 long, 60. Right 2 long, don't cut, crest 80. Left 5 long, crest, jump maybe 80. Caution, left 4 long, keep mid. Into right 5.5 long, don't cut, right at the front. Into left 4 long. Into caution, right 2 long, keep mid. 170. Caution, jump, right 5 tight, don't cut. Left 6. Into left 6 long, 80 over bump. Right 6. Water temper's creeping up. Into left 6. Into right 5 tight, don't cut. Caution, left 2 narrows and slippy, keep mid. Into left 6, 60, crest jump and keep left over crest. Caution crest, right 6 tights to 5 narrows. Left 3 long, 60. Crest jump maybe. Right 3 long, 60. Left 2 continues for 80 past lay-by. Into right 6. Into crest jump maybe 60. Left over crest. Right 6 long. Into left 6. And right 2 half long, don't cut. Left 3 long, right over crest 80. Right 6 over small crest. Into left 4. 80. Left 6, 80 over small crest. Finish.
The term left foot braking is often misunderstood as simply using your left foot rather than your right foot to operate the brake pedal. While that fact is true, it only scratches the surface in explaining the technique. If braking, accelerating and steering are the tools used to manage weight transfer, left foot braking is the tool for fine adjustment. Using your left foot on the brake pedal and your right foot on the accelerator has a number of advantages. The amount of time taken between pressing the accelerator and brake pedals is significantly reduced compared to using your right foot only. This means that fractions of a second are saved every time you swap from accelerating to braking and back again. If you apply a small amount of brake force while accelerating, particularly in a front-wheel drive car, the load that the engine and drivetrain has to work against causes the differential to tighten. This spreads the power across both wheels, making it less likely to spin one of those wheels due to low grip, therefore giving you more driving traction out of corners. Weight transfer can be fine-tuned mid-corner by adjusting the amount of brake force versus the amount of throttle applied. A little more brake input transfers weight forward, giving more traction on the front wheels to help the car turn in. A little more throttle corrects oversteer if the car is sliding too much. The car can be balanced at the edge of traction throughout a corner using this method. Brake balance adjustment can be used in conjunction with left foot braking to tune the balance between understeer and oversteer. Some of these principles still apply if you use your right foot on the brake, but clearly the speed at which you can move between pedals becomes a factor. Cars that require the clutch to be engaged in order to change gear usually prevent the use of left foot braking for slowing the car down from high speed. However, the technique can still be applied through a corner. Remember, left foot braking allows you to quickly switch between acceleration and braking and is a fantastic technique for fine-tuning the weight transfer of the car. Tyres operate at their optimum with a certain amount of wheel spin. On gravel, wheel spin lets the tread of the tyre move the loose material on the road surface and puts the tyre in contact with the harder surface underneath, where the most grip can be found. However, excessive wheel spin prevents the tyres from achieving their maximum grip potential, and so it's not always appropriate to floor the accelerator. The technique used to combat excessive wheel spin is known as feathering the throttle and is used primarily when exiting a corner to achieve maximum grip and therefore acceleration. Instead of using the accelerator pedal as an on-off switch, you can modulate the throttle input to find the most grip. The amount of throttle input required to do this will vary from surface to surface and even from corner to corner, so it is more a case of feeling for the grip than knowing exactly how much throttle to apply. Bumps can also unload the suspension and tyres, reducing traction by flicking the front, rear or one side of the car upward. Rally stages are usually uneven surfaces, but particularly bad bumps that unsettle the car or require you to do something different than you otherwise would are often called out in the pace notes. Bumps don't always stretch across the entire width of the road, and so evasive action may be necessary, such as moving to one side of the road. Dips or other compressions in the road surface can be unpredictable and should be treated with caution. Dips that occur over a long distance may not have too big an impact on the car, but those that are shorter can act like a severe bump, as the suspension is compressed and then rapidly extended, causing the car to be flicked into the air. Extra caution needs to be taken when traversing extremely rough terrain, with many bumps and dips that can unsettle the car. Care should also be taken when crossing water splashes, as they can, like dips and bumps, be unpredictable. Depending on the depth of water and the width of the crossing, the approach may change from flat out to slowing right down and just driving through it at a normal road speed. Hitting deep water at high speed can damage the front of the car, and so it is often better to lose a few seconds by slowing down than losing minutes with mechanical damage. Remember, this is why bumps, dips and water splashes are called out in your pace notes, and where listening to your co-driver is extremely important. Another important aspect of pace notes is the timing. This is the point at which the co-driver delivers the note to you, relative to the position on the road. Again, this is down to preference, but it is common for the pace notes to be delivered 1 or 2 corners ahead of where the car is on the road. This allows you to build up a mental picture of the road ahead, so that you can put the car in the correct attitude at the correct time to achieve maximum speed. While some drivers prefer pace note to be delivered later than others, it is critical that you are given each note before the point at which you would need to react to them. The most obvious example of that would be a braking point for a corner. If the pace note is given to you after the point at which you would need to brake, particularly for a corner that cannot be seen on approach, this is a late note. Many crashes in rallying have been caused by the co-driver not giving the driver the pace note in time. If you want to, you can adjust the co-driver call timing in the player preferences menu so that the calls are delivered with the timing that suits you.
left 4 long, keep mid. Into right 5 half long, don't cut, right on track. Into left 4 long. Into caution, right 2 long, keep mid. 170. Caution jump, right 5 tight jump cut, left 6. Into left 6 long, 80 over bump. Right 6. Into left 6. Into right 5 tight don't cut. Caution left 2 narrows and slippy keep mid. Left 4 long, keep mid. Into right 5 half long, go cut, right on track. Into left 4 long. Into caution, right 2 long, keep mid. 170. Caution jump, right 5 tight, no cut. Left 6. Into left 6 long, 80 over bump. Tight, don't cut, left 2 narrows, and slippy keep mid. Left 6, 60, press jump, and keep left on the press. Press, right 6 times 5 narrows. Left 3 long. 60. Press jump maybe. Right 3 long, 60. Left 2 continue to 80 past lay-by. Into right 6. Into press jump maybe 60. Left over press, right 6 long, into left 6, and right 2 half long, don't cut, left 3 long, right over press, 80. Right 6 over small press, into left 4, 80. Left 6, 80 over small press. Left 6, 80. Right 2 long, don't cut. 150. Caution, keep right on the press. Jump maybe, half junction, left 4 half long, don't cut. Into small press and long. Into left 5 half long and right 6. Into left 6 over bump narrow, straight in 60. Left 6 half long and right 5 don't cut. Into left 5 half long. Into right 5 half long, 80. Left over press. And right 1 long. Left 6. Left 4 half long, 60 over front jump maybe. Left 6. And right 1 long. Left 5, right 4 through dip, don't cut. Left 60 to 80, side 5, 60. Right 2 half long, and right 6. Left 6, 130. Keep right half junction over bus narrows 100. Right 6, caution slowing 60 over crest. Right 4 long cut. And left 5 long front junction. Right 6 and left 6, caution 100 keep left over crest. Right 4 long no cut. Into caution left 6 crest jump maybe. Left 6 keep in. Right 6, left 6, and left 4 half long, right 5 don't cut 100, left 1 long, tight and narrow 60, right 6 60, left 6 60, left 6 into caution bump narrows, left 6, right 6, right 6 continues for 80, tight 5 and continues 110 higher. Into left 3 long and right 6 into keep left over small crest 60, keep right over crest. And caution left 6 into right 1, continues for 100. Right 4 narrows, left 5 half long, 80 crest, right 6 long into left 6, and right 6 long, into turn left 1. Left 4 continues for 80 crest. Right 1 long 80. Left 5 don't cut. Right 4 continues for 80 over crest. Right 6 into left 3. And right 4 half long and left 5. And right 660, keep back over crest, 120 to finish.
Right to tempting tonight, you gotta run away, 'cause we the winner, beat your drum, like your heart, you gotta be the time. I will be the power, running the night, all the light, like an emotion, take it right. I'll be with you, you see tonight, gonna tell you that destination, station to station, play with emotion, wanna meet the new revolution, station to station, ready to action, gonna feel the power inside you, station to station, play with emotion, wanna meet the new revolution, station to station, ready to action, gonna feel the power inside you. Run away, far from here, you gotta run tonight, 'cause you ain't a loser, ride the wind, cross the sky, you gotta play the game, I will get you started, running the night, for the light, like an emotion, take it right, I'll be with you, you see tonight.